Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aha Moments to Success podcast. I'm so glad that you joined us today. We're starting off a new twist to our podcast. This is going to be the second into the version. And so we're going to be producing it audio version, but we're also going to be doing it visual because I know that everyone likes it differently. So you are able to subscribe over to iTunes or go on over to our website and go and subscribe there. We'll get it to your inbox, but also on YouTube. You'll be able to go there and subscribe to Anita Heidema, and you will get the Aha Moments to Success podcast there too. 2020 has been an interesting year, so we've also combined the podcast. So now it will be as an Ask Anita. So basically I'll answer one question that has been sent to me because I've been having a large request of people wanting me to do that again. And secondly, yeah, that's it. So it'll be a little bit different. And then we're going to get into who the guest and the speaker is of the podcast. So love any of your subscriptions, any comments, anything else that you could do. Really appreciate having you there. And we'll get moving on with Aha Moments to Success with Ask Anita. So the first question is, what is the one thing you did right for 2020? The one thing you did wrong? Monique. So I should have read this question sooner than just now, but I've got to say that in 2020, the one thing that I did right is kind of wrong, actually. So the one thing I did right is pivot my business. And everyone talks about the pivot, and how things are changing. So the one thing is important that you step in to what people are wanting in your business at any time. And still keeping true to who you are and what that is. That's really important. But it is also important to make those adjustments to society, to the way things are changing, to what people are needing out there is really, really important. So that was one thing that I did, was really pivot the business. So pivot both businesses, because I've got Passionate Cooking as well as Anita Heidema. So that was one thing that was important that was changed. And keeping up the positivity and the resilience around that. That's really, really important. And number two would be that the wrong thing that I did was almost pivoting my business. Because what I found was that it burned me out to some extent. I got to be honest. I right away jumped in with my clients, and I do a lot more group coaching, and sometimes people will sign in to work with me, or they'll do a VIP day. But I went right into all of my clients in the group, which is quite a few, and worked with them individually, free of cost, just to make sure that they were honing in on their business. So that was really, really important. So what I did right was what I almost did wrong, because I did too much of it. And also with Passionate Cooking, what we did is we realized that there was a real need of people out there cooking from home to come up with new ideas for recipes, how to be sustainable, how to use what was in the fridge. And we made our own yeast, because yeast wasn't available in the store. And all of that was happening at once, and there was a lot of burnout. So what I did right was pivot the business, and what I didn't do right was almost being too intense, right? So anyway, that was the two things that I did right and I did wrong, and that's probably the best answer. And that was from Monique. I don't know if I mentioned that. So yeah, it was Monique. So thank you, Monique, for that question. And today, now we're going to get on to, and again, if you have any other questions, come on over to info@anitaheidema.com and send them there, and I will answer them over the next time period. This podcast will come out every Sunday via email, and then the next week it will come out during social. So come on over, subscribe at iTunes, on the website, and YouTube, wherever that is, or over at the website, anitaheidema.com, where I'll get emailed to you. That's probably the easiest. Anyway, today we've got an amazing guest. We have Michelle Butt. She is a facial intelligence expert. And I always am fascinated by Michelle and what she does, because I find with NLP, I look at people and what they do, but you actually have it by looking at their actual picture and what they do. And Michelle, I was fascinated with what you do. So tell us more about this wonderful facial, it kind of sounds like a CIA, no? intelligence expert. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Hi. So nice to
Hi.
be here. Yeah. So facial intelligence really is looking at the face as a kind of a map of who someone is. So it's learning how to read someone's personality, their life experience, the way they do the world, just from the features, markings, wrinkles that show up on their face.
Wow. So it's not only just the wrinkles, but it's actually like the shape of something?
Mhm. It's the combination, shape, size, placement of features as well that kind of give archetypal or personality type descriptions of who someone is. And that way you can know how to talk to them or how to
Mm-hmm.
work with them, all communicate with them, connect with them, all of that.
Okay, I've got to ask you, have you figured me out?
Oh, I figure everybody out. Yeah, of course, of course.
Well, I always find that with NLP in the portion, I can tell what people really mean. It's either within their words or it's
Mhm.
the way they look. But you have NLP plus this on top of it. So talking to someone, your brain must be going crazy.
Yeah, it does. Well, and it did, and it does. And at first, as when you're learning the work, you're kind of doing everything very consciously. But as it becomes something that you build as a habit, then it's kind of unconscious. You look at someone and you're like, oh, okay, they're this archetype. So automatically, in the way that I start thinking about how I'm going to talk to them, the words change, the pace changes, all of that potentially depending on who the person is.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
like rapport on steroids.
Yeah. 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 Without having to do the test, like
Yeah.
you don't have to give them the test.
Yeah.
So,
And what's neat is you can actually look at someone's picture as well, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really is kind of one of the big advantages of this work because it's not quite body language. There are body language aspects to it and there are real-time aspects to it, but really it is kind of proactive work in the sense that you can look at someone's Facebook picture, get an idea as to who they are or kind of what personality type they are, so that when you are going to hop on a Zoom call with them or a phone call, you already know what they are going to like and what kinds of words or explanations they're going to resonate with based on doing that research, because their face will give you that personality archetype right there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. No, I'm always curious. You must have to look at various pictures because I know with some of mine, I mean, I had one photographer that I looked like a Barbie doll, didn't even look like me anymore. So it must be difficult with some areas like that because you want to be able to get the wide spectrum of what the person actually looks like as opposed to being altered, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their glamour shots, right? So that's not really the one you're looking for. You're looking kind of for the one where they're just regular life, and because that's who someone is. I think that's the best picture to find, or the one that they're giving you. So if people are giving just one shot, then that's kind of what they want you to see. And what you can see in there, whether it's what they want to show you or what's hidden, will also give you an idea of who that person is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes in marketing now, I know I've had that direction myself from marketing people that have worked with me. They're saying, no, 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 you want to make sure that you have that perfect shot. You want to make sure that you have that ideal picture, that your Instagram wall has to look, perfect. And over time, I've grown to say, no, 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 I'm going to have that shot by the water when I have no makeup on and, with the dog or whatever that is. And, so what that, I have a little bit of extra weight, I'm going to showcase that. But that's kind of come in time. So sometimes it might be hard because people are being told that they need to be perfect. So I guess when you get that perfect shot of them being natural, then you know for sure, right?
Yeah, and truthfully, like I said, the picture is kind of the proactive work, especially if you're doing work like you and I do. Most of the time, then we end up on a Zoom call or some kind of video chat these days with somebody. So you get to then compare your research to how they show up. And when they show up, then you kind of see the real time, what's going on. how you might have to pivot the way you were thinking of your approach based on what you actually see, right?
Yeah.
Because, I had a client a few years ago, and the pictures they sent me were very touched up, and I didn't even realize they were touched up until she came on the screen, and it's like, oh, okay.
Is that you?
It's like, okay. And so, the pictures they send out are the perfect pictures, and that's great. But, what's truly in her face showed some of the places where she did need help. And that was much easier to see when there was no filter of Photoshop. Right?
Yeah. So was your aha moment something that brought you to this, or was it something else?
I think my aha moment came as a result of this. So, part of the reason I got into face reading was I was doing my coaching work, I was living my life, and I felt like there were aspects in my personal life and in my business interactions with clients that I wasn't always getting everything, and I felt like I was missing pieces of the story, and there had to be another way to understand people, how to interact with them, how to help them. And so I found face reading, and as I was doing my initial studies early on, my mentor talked about this concept of, we are taught the golden rule, most of us as kids, right? Like, do unto others the way you would want to be done unto. And she's like, that's really not the way of the world, because nobody else is you. Even if they're your twin, they're not exactly you. And so they don't want you to treat them the way you want to be treated. They want you to treat them the way they want to be treated. And looking at their face and understanding who they are, and then translating the way you would typically speak to a way that they would like to hear it, is the greatest gift you can give to somebody. And that was my aha. It was like, oh my gosh. And so many times I'm like, well, I like this, so you should like this. And then, the thing doesn't land. It was like, okay, what do they like? And if I can give them what they like, then, oh my goodness, they're going to be so much more receptive to giving me the things that I need. So that was my huge aha.
Mm-hmm. And it's so true with, I'm talking as a coaching role, there's always people that are going to resonate with you and people that aren't, and whatever that is. But you're right. Like, it's so important to get into that space of who they are, as opposed to, because coaching is really bringing out the best in somebody else. It's not telling them what to do. Right.
No, yeah. And I mean, we all have, the way I like to describe it is, we all have our program or our thing that we know works. And we have people who come to us and they say, no, that's not for me, but we know it's for them. And the only reason they might have said no was because we just didn't frame it in the way they needed to hear it, so that they knew it was for them. And if we could get better at doing that, then we could help so many more people. Because oftentimes we think, oh my gosh, this thing turned my life around because I was going through XYZ, but the other person is going through, WJK, and those are still relevant things to that offering, but you need to talk about WJK, not XYZ. And their face will tell you that that's how they need to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Coaching is a difficult one to reach to people, because you have to be able to get that feeling of, you get from A to B to them, right? And that's why understanding them that much better is so important. And I look to when I first was coached. I don't know if you know this story or not, but I worked in corporate and they had hired me a coach. And this is how I first got into it. It's probably 20 something years ago now. And at the time, coaching wasn't that popular. And I was embarrassed. I'm like, do they think there's something wrong with me? Like, what is this? Why do I have to, is this therapy? At first I thought it was, I'm not playing baseball or basketball. I had no idea what it was. And it wasn't until I was in it to realize what an impact it made into my life, and I was still kind of like hush hush. I didn't tell anyone I was going to see a coach in the office, because I was managing a big team and I thought, oh no, they're going to be talking about me and saying all kinds of things. And it wasn't until I trained myself into it. But I think that people, once they get past that point, like you said, like, they all of a sudden, you know that they need this, right? But how do you reach them to tell them, like, the transformation? And that's when people get into their stories, and everyone tells their stories of how they, like the aha moment, right? Like how it changed to them, hoping that it would, because everybody, to me personally, needs a coach.
Yeah.
You want to get from A to B, you got to get out of here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be able to, you know this, right? But it's so true that when you understand them that much more, you can talk to them better and be able to, you know, move them into places what they can get to. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so I've been dying to ask this, and you know I've been asking this, and I'm hoping if I put you on the spot here now that you'll tell me why. Wrinkles here, tell me.
Well, can you show me?
So I get them right above the eyebrow. They're right here. There's like 4 or
Are
5.
they?
And yes, I mean, I have wrinkles everywhere. I'm 53, right? But these ones seem to be so prominent. So there's some kind of an expression that I do like this, I'm assuming.
And they're not connected in the center, right? They just are just right
I
over
don't
the.
have any, well, I mean, yeah, a little bit, but nothing really there. It's more the expression above the arch of the eyebrow.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually probably more prominent than my actual eyebrow because my eyebrows are so light. So, and I always think to myself, why? Why is that happening? You know, what would you think?
Well, in face reading, this may sound like too strong of a word, but this is the description for those. They're indicative of what we call mental anguish. So it's like thinking and trying to work through a problem kind of thing that's persisting, or you know, that's what that is. So I mean, we all do that, but what is the habit or the thought pattern habit behind that? And then what's the root? It could be like very business related. It could be personal related. I see them showing up depending on different things that are going through people's life. But really, it's about, you know, thinking hard and trying to work through something. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, I mean, there's always mental anguish, especially this year. But, you know, to me, I almost think that I do it in my conversation with people. And I'm sorry to be putting you on the spot like this here.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, when I talk to people, I make that sort of like almost, I'm very expressioned in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I make that expression where I bring my eyebrows up? Because that's what I notice, you know, that kind of a thing.
Well, and I think that from what I'm, you know, understanding from the rest of your face, like you're very emotionally in tune with people, so empathic, but also intuitive in trying to find a solution. So I think because, you know, being that kind of empath facial archetype, you're going to be more expressive anyway than other people. Like, you know, captivate or fire energy people tend to be more expressive, and that's very much you. But in the moment, I think in conversations, just by the nature of who you are and then what you do, you're always kind of looking for solutions. So as you're having a conversation with someone and they're telling you about whatever might be going on, you're in your coach brain and you're thinking, okay, how am I going to help solve this? And then, you know, sometimes it's not for you to solve, or because, you know, we can't solve everybody's problem as coaches. We have to solve the problems for the people who actually will want us to solve them. So it's almost like, okay, I have to be quiet. I can't say everything until I get permission, either by them asking or them committing to a coaching agreement or something. So it's this always wanting to help, kind of always having a solution, but having to hold back. And that may be the anguish part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what? That makes a bit more sense than the first one. I mean, I mean, there's always something you're dealing with, you know, that's what life is. Yeah, interesting. No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot or look for a free coaching call here. But I was like, oh, I've always been wanting to ask you. So, you know, but it also gives people an idea of what you do and how you can read them. Because I think that's really, really important for people to.
And the thing is too, with things like that on the face, they're kind of the breadcrumb to then find what the underlying thing is. Because, you know, for you, it might not be that you're going through something. Like I've seen that on faces with people going through, you know, serious health issues or things like that, or with loved ones, but it might just be, you know, the nature of, like we were talking, how you do your work and how you're always thinking of what other people need and trying to solve those problems. So, the face kind of gives you the clue as to what the habit may be, and then you get to drill down and figure out what the root of that is. And if it's a habit that needs changing, then to do the work around it. But sometimes it's just like, oh, this is my story. This is how I do, figuring things out. I make that face and this is my face and that's good, right? So so that's, I think, the beautiful part is, because when people can't articulate what it is, their face kind of shows you where to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's good. And it's interesting because, what you were saying kind of brings back to what, I forget what her name was, asked the question earlier on. It was interesting. It was because my good thing I did this year was really my bad thing. And that's one of the things, is turning it off.
Yeah.
And, and that's why I love doing programs for people about work-life balance, because it has been something that I've had problems with. And for me to get to that next level and to have that balance, and I dealt with it in corporate life as well, to let go and to do that. So that's where you're saying diving deeper. Well, why is that? It's because I'm constantly reading, trying to help, all of that. And it does get tiring after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. I love it. I think it's so great. So what would you say are 3 tips that you'd give to people, or what could you give the listeners some wisdom that you would have, and then they could follow you more and come and find you?
I think in terms of, like, in the world that we're in today, so if you are in a situation where you're doing lots of Zoom type stuff like we're doing today, then, tips to think of: if you want to be the one in the spotlight, then accentuating your ability to be the person that the other one is focusing on. So I think consciously, unconsciously, the two of us have both done that today, because, if you're going to be the speaking focus, then you kind of want to accentuate your speaker, your mouth. And so, as a woman, you can do that with putting on a brighter lip, so people say, oh, okay, I'm looking at that, something that calls attention to that. For men, they might have to do something like, wear a red tie or something that keeps that focus, or red here in that kind of throat chakra kind of area as well. Another thing to do is to do the research, like we talked about. Look at the faces of the people before. We all kind of unconsciously read faces, so you get an idea. But, it's a lot easier to kind of do the research and see someone and figure out a little bit about who they are, so that you're prepared when you get online with them.
Mm-hmm.
And another good place to do, because I think that most of us, when we're in an interaction like this, we're really thinking about, okay, how does that other person process information, or how do they make decisions? And one place I always tell people to look is to look at the eyebrows, because that's kind of the decision-making strategy feature. And so if you learn nothing else and you can learn about that, pretty much everybody shows their eyebrows. There's very few where people cover both of them with hair these days. Just to know what that means. So if someone has really straight eyebrows, then they're pretty logical. They need to know the logic of things. If they have really rounded eyebrows, then they're very people-centered. So they really make their decisions based on if the result will be good for all the people that are concerned in their life. So even just looking at a picture of someone before you hop on a call and just checking out what their eyebrows say, whether they're rounded or straight, will give you some direction in terms of how to present your information, whatever that may be.
Oh, that's interesting. With eyebrows, I mean, I really don't have many eyebrows. And when I color them in, I feel that much more confident. It's strange. Oh, for sure. And I look very different, because I guess it brings out my eyes. When I don't, I look very washed out, and you don't feel as confident, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
And yeah, and that is really about confidence and strength, that part of the face. So definitely you're doing something right when you're filling them in, because even by looking in the mirror and you seeing that, you're reflecting back, oh, I look like a strong, confident person. So you're going to present that way. So our reflection tells us how other people see us, but it also tells us how we see ourselves. And, making those changes, then we're like, oh, okay, I must be confident. And then you portray that to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to pencil them in. They're too light. And I've thought about doing what everyone else is doing with the making the brows, but I don't want to look like Groucho because I am too fair. It would look kind of funny too. But no, it's interesting though, is to go in there. And those are some great tips for people to look for, to get a feeling of, who they're dealing with. And it's even more so important, like you said, now we're dealing with Zoom. You don't get that feeling or that energy that you would normally get is sitting into a meeting and really understanding that person and being able to see that beforehand, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you do have to really build rapport really well, because again, usually these things are timed and people are popping off. It's not like when you're in person where, it's an hour, but it just feels like you can linger or you can have a conversation in a parking lot. It doesn't really happen when we're online. It's very regimented in terms of, okay, bye, see you, and then click, we're done,
Yeah. So you used to do more coaching and NLP, and then this was sort of an addition to your practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the main tool to get to help people to understand themselves and then get to the root of whatever their blocks might be to move them forward with whatever their goals are. And but then I still draw on all the other tools in my coaching toolbox, because sometimes you discover an issue that shows up in the face, but it needs timeline therapy or some other type of tool to clear it. So depending on what it is, then yeah.
Yeah. So do you still do mostly one-on-one coaching with people? Is that what you do?
Yeah, for the most part, I do one-on-one, and then I do lead classes and teach people how to read faces for different purposes. So, for personal relationship or for business and sales, because there's, slightly different focus there. But yeah, so we have online course offerings, and then I have my one-on-one and mastermind type coaching opportunities that people can take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. I guess because it works in everything, like even with a relationship in the home, you could get together with a family, and that's so needed now that everyone's under the same roof. People are having difficulties right now. So being able to understand that better is so important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially for, relationships with your partner, but also even with kids. Like, we talked about, we have lots of kids. You do, I do, like blended families. And so they're all different personalities. And if you want everyone to accomplish the same thing, sometimes you have to say the same thing a few different ways so that everybody gets on board and speak their language.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Now, and of course, with our message with Pasha's cooking, it's everyone, like the household side of it is getting everyone in the kitchen cooking again. So analyze the faces, know exactly what it is you want best to cook, and then get in there and cook together. I think those activities are so important right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll put in the link below where everyone can reach you and either be trained on how to do it themselves or be able to work with you for coaching. So that's great to hear from you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. Always fun to chat with you.
I really appreciate your time.
Okay.
Ciao.